Literally gonna sneeze the minute I start recording. Okay. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Stop talking. So funny. Right. I hope everyone had a great weekend. I had a lovely day picking pumpkins with my small people and going and meeting some owls at an owl sanctuary, and it was all pretty idyllic and gorgeous and much needed. And knitting. Lots and lots and lots and lots of knitting socks. Slightly obsessed with my knitting at the moment. Um, Loads of really great sharing, both via email and in the group. And it's been brilliant to see that that day was really useful for people to catch up and do some reflecting. There's been lots of really positive action taking and great sharing of that action taking also, which I wanted to thank everybody for because it's really motivational. It's one of the reasons this idea of community is so important. Sharing tips, sharing what you've done, sharing what your aha moments are, what the light bulb moments are, where you've had a breakthrough. That's all really motivational for people who perhaps are less able to come forward with things, but who really, really, really want to also progress. So I've just loved it. And although I was supposed to be properly detached tomorrow yesterday, I totally wasn't properly detached, and I was scrolling through and seeing what people said and checking emails and things because this stuff lights me up as much as it lights you up. It's really, really rewarding to know that this stuff is hitting home for people. So props to you all. Very, very, very impressed. Okay, so we have our guest speaker this morning who happens to be my like resident expert on a lot of things, all things technical, all things mindset. I just want to do a quick introduction to him. So Chris is a photographer and filmmaker and outdoor professional. If you are into slightly geeky adventure films, he has a movie on Netflix and on Amazon Prime, a feature film called The Yukon Assignment, which is a wonderful, gentle story of adventure in one of the world's last great wildernesses, the Yukon Territory in northern Canada. And when I was 7 months pregnant with Eliza, he and his dad went on a two-man canoe expedition, 500, they paddled 500 miles of river up into the Arctic Circle. Me being pregnant was a sort of coincidence because the whole expedition had taken 2 years of planning. And as we all know, babies don't take 2 years to arrive. So luckily the timing was about right. He got back about a month before, 2 months before she came. She was also horrendously late. So check that out. Jackie, can you put a link? Can you just put the name of it in the chat for me? Thank you so much. The Yukon Assignment, and it's on Netflix and Prime, and it did a cinema tour, so you might have seen it. Anyway, aside from that, his major zone of genius is working with people in an outdoor environment to help them move beyond their own sense of limitations and to learn and grow, learn about themselves and grow. He will put this a lot better. So I'm going to hand over to him now. He's going to do a quick session for you on growth mindset, which is a really nice add-on to the 4 sessions that we looked at last week. So I'm going to mute myself and go over to Christopher, and he's just going to get cracking.
Turn all my oh no, you might have to turn your volume down. Swapping on audio stuff so that we don't get a massive feedback loop in the studio. Well, this is very exciting. Good morning, everyone. I was reflecting putting this together that when Annie and I first got together, people could be accused of sort of thinking, well, what's the commonality there? You've got a glamorous costume designer that lives in London, and a scruffy expedition leader that kind of lives out of a rucksack and travels around the place. And strangely enough, our sort of professional lives have got closer and closer over the years, and it gladdened my heart to hear Annie talking about the power of yet the other day. I was like, yes, growth mindset. And it's a strange old thing that although we use a completely different vehicle, with Annie with her sewing and community, and me using the outdoors and adventure, there's a lot of sort of commonality there in terms of what we talk about with students and people that we work with. So this morning, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about growth mindset, and I have some slides which I will attempt to share with you. Where's it gone? Anyone can give me a thumbs up if you've got a. Oh, it's not playing yet, is it?
I can see.
Is it playing? No, where is it?
No,
It's
it's not
playing.
playing.
How's that?
There we go. Yeah, that's fine.
Better?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Good stuff. Um, so I will put some links about this in the chat at the end as well, so you can go off and have a little look. That's our starting point. Failure is not a permanent condition, and this is a fundamental part of growth mindset that we have to kind of get our heads around. Um, the whole idea of it is that our potential isn't fixed. It can be shaped by our mindset, our choices, what we look into. And that's an incredibly powerful thing. The lady who came up with this concept, by the way, Carol Dweck, her thing was all about the potential of thinking about that we can become more than we are, that we can develop as we go along. So that is the big takeaway from this, really, that failure is not a permanent condition. Here's our little one. I don't think she was quite 3 at this point. I think she was still 2 at this point. And for a while, she became the poster child of rab clothing, about young people getting out climbing. And the reason I want to start with this is that obviously we have two little people, and their sort of predisposition to growth mindset is quite different. And I'm going to explain exactly what I mean by growth mindset in a moment, but is one of those things that can get kind of siloed, that you either growth mindset or fixed mindset, and it doesn't work like that. We've all got areas of our lives where we'd be more likely to be on the growth mindset things or the fixed mindset things. And a lot of it comes down to the whole sort of nature nurture debate. So our two obviously share a lot of DNA, and roughly speaking, they have the same sort of upbringing. But I would say out of the two of them, our youngest is definitely a sort of more natural growth mindset-y type, and our eldest is more a sort of natural fixed mindset-y. And that doesn't mean that they don't have times where they kind of swap over and stuff. But I wanted to start with this slide because we all start as little people of being incredibly growth mindset. And and by that I kind of mean that we don't consider anything to be impossible. When you're crawling along the floor and you see something exciting on the sofa like a snack, you don't think it's impossible to climb up on that sofa. You start working out how you can climb up on that sofa, and you'll fall down a lot of times. You'll find yourself on your belly or on your back. Sometimes you'll need to seek support, but there's nothing inside a baby or a toddler's head that's saying, no, that's impossible. I can't do that. And I think this one of our smallest is quite a good example of that, that faced with a great big chunk of rock. She didn't think that's impossible. I can't go up that. She was quite up for giving it a go. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. So a bit more on the sciencey side of stuff. I wouldn't try reading this because your eyes will go strange. But I'll share the model in the chat group when I finish speaking. But the overall idea of this is that we've faced with any kind of problem or any kind of challenge in life, we've got two different pathways that we can go down. We've got the growth mindset, which is the green, well, a fixed mindset, which is marked out by the blue. I keep losing my notes. Okay. So if you're faced with an issue, and let's take a sewing issue of doing is a flat felled seam a real thing?
Flat seam?
Yeah. So a flat felled seam, which love for outdoory type stuff. If you were in a kind of fixed mindset, you're going to avoid doing that seam at any cost. You're going to do like 6 conventional seams to try and reinforce it to avoid trying that out. If you were starting to try it, you're going to give up quite easily and just go, well, I don't know how to do it anyway. Perhaps you might see the effort that you're putting into that completely fruitless, that you're not going to learn how to do it, or you're going to need to get someone else to do it. So what's the point of putting any effort into it? You might also try and be quite avoidant of feedback. feedback as humans is probably one of the hardest thing to accept. But that's the thing that helps us grow. So you're going to sort of avoid that, and you might start scrolling through Pinterest and Instagram, seeing fantastic flat felled seams done by other people, and think, well, I can never achieve what they're achieving. So again, I'm going to avoid it. Growth mindset, on the other hand, is where we embrace those challenges, and that's where we go back to that picture of Josephine at the beginning. That you need to get into that mindset of wanting to embrace the challenge, actually enjoying that challenge, because with that, you're then going to persist through the setbacks when it doesn't work quite properly to start with. You're going to keep going at it and see that effort not as fruitless, but as a pathway to mastering something. That effort will ultimately lead to you having a really strong confidence and feeling empowered with whatever you're working on. Instead of looking at it as a difficult feedback, look at it as a pathway to sort of learn from that criticism. Even the word criticism is quite horrible, but like the kind of feedback loop that you can create of going, right, what is it that I can improve? What went well? What didn't go so well? What can I improve on next time? And rather than being intimidated by other people's successes, be it in a group like this or out on social media, whatever, it's very easy to get intimidated by other people being successful at it, but being more kind of inspired by other successes. And if you follow that pathway, ultimately, your goals will be kind of ever increasing, that your improvement will increase and increase and increase. If you stayed in a fixed mindset and had a deterministic view of the world, you get into a situation which I quite often talk about with young people. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And that's a very kind of limiting position to be in, and inhibits growth, obviously. So the whole growth mindset thing really is accepting and embracing that our minds are plastic, that over time we can grow and develop new skills. And kind of linking into a different model here of talking about grit as well. But it is definitely fundamentally kind of sort of in the growth mindset thing. That on the screen you've got a selection of people that society would consider to be talented, incredibly high level in the things that they do. But there's a bit of a fallacy behind that, and all of these people weren't just born as absolute experts in what they did. They've had to develop that over time, and there's a lot that's unseen. And if I take a kind of growth mindset example with Albert Einstein, he was famously not very good at arithmetic. So if he was in a fixed mindset, and he probably didn't, well, he wouldn't have known about those models because they weren't developed, but he probably didn't consciously think, I'm not very good at arithmetic, I need a way of overcoming that. He just kind of circumvented it. He found people around him that could do the kind of core maths for him, and cracked on with bigger issues like the mysteries of the universe. So that's a really good example of growth mindset there, of embracing those challenges, of either finding a way around it or finding a way through it using a structure so that you can get onto the bigger and better stuff. You could almost imagine his school report as a youngster of saying Albert's really struggles at maths. He probably won't amount to anything in the field of maths. Like, he could have been limited at that point, but he obviously persisted through that. So taking that a little bit further, a colleague of mine in school was a big boxer in the day, and he had this poster up on the wall for all the students to see. But I think that's also quite empowering from Muhammad Ali, and the concept behind it is what you see with high performing people. They've only got to that stage because of all the hidden stuff, all that training, all that practicing, and all that failing. And that's a really huge part of this, is embracing the fear of failure, or rather the feeling of the fear of failure. Particularly with something that's a skill like sewing, is that I think Annie said it the other day that if you cut a bit of fabric wrong, no one's died. Like, it's a bit rubbish that you spoilt your bit of fabric, but you can risk failure in a controlled environment. Be that start with using a bit of calico or a bit of lower value fabric, and just get used to that feeling of failing at something, because that allows you to push forward. Sometimes even intentionally failing, that like a classic thing with drawing is just make a complete scribble drawing to start with, or if you're writing, just get that flow of consciousness down on the page. And you could do that with sewing, couldn't you, with a bit of scrap fabric of just literally running a load of stitches around, just so that you've started, and you've got over that kind of overwhelming feeling of, oh gosh, what if something goes wrong? Because ultimately, these super successful people, if we take the idea of an Olympic swimmer, which I appreciate is a bit of a divergence from sewing, but bear with me. Um, if we take an Olympic medal level swimmer, on average, they're going to be training 6 hours a day, 6 days of the week, and that will be without fail, including Christmas, starting at 5 a.m. in the dark, completely committed. They're going to be swimming at least 50 miles a week. That's and that's going to burn a huge amount of calories. So they're going to be trying to consume 12,000 calories a day. That's a huge commitment for a human being to take on. If they get to the Olympics and they win a medal, they're in danger of somebody saying, "Oh, you're so talented." And I always think how annoying that would be, having devoted years of your life and that level of commitment of literally changing your body to get to that level. And then somebody kind of whitewashes it with, oh, you're talented. Like it's not talent. That's really hard work and a lot of failure that's gone behind that in order to get to that level. So it's absolutely amazing, really. Taking on these challenges leads to a much more kind of empowered, enriched life in many ways. It will increase your motivation for learning, increase your motivation for your craft, for your hobby. It gives you better resilience, and by that, I'm definitely linking back to that kind of feeling of failure. If you don't fear the failure anymore, that's going to make you very resilient, both in your projects, but it also leaks into wider life as well. It unlocks higher achievement for you because ultimately you're going to develop your skills and get stronger and stronger at what you do, so that you can take on harder projects. To give you another sewing example, you have people that might say, "I can't sew stretch." There's that's your limiting belief and your kind of fixed mindset of "I can't sew stretch." And he would put in that kind of power of yet. So it's I can't sew stretch yet. That's getting harder and harder to say. And another way in kind of growth mindset is I'm learning how to sew stretch. So it might be that you don't know how to do it yet, but you are learning how to do it. And that kind of reframes it into something that becomes a process to improve your achievement and give you more satisfaction for it. And the kind of last thing that I kind of leave you with this is that yes, it's a kind of learning technique. It's an approach to improve whatever it is that you're into. In this case, sewing, but it's also a transformative tool. So as I say, it will transfer into other parts of your life, be that in a kind of social sense, where other hobbies, other things, so that confidence that you get from one thing that you push yourself forward goes across to other things. So we've got a picture on the left of my screen, that's got our littlest and our oldest. And as I said at the beginning, our eldest tends to be a little bit more fixed mindset about certain things. Certainly with the climbing example, she's been more resistant. And that's definitely been around the fear of failure. What if I can't do it? By having a sister who's more on the growth mindset thing, she's become that role model, that influence community, in this case between siblings, but it could be a wider community, that when you see someone that adopts a growth mindset, or if you're adopting a growth mindset, that has a really positive reaction with everyone that's around you, that has increased belief, that seeing, I've seen that person go from that level to that level and keep pushing themselves, is a really strong thing, and ultimately raises up the whole of that community, the whole of society around it. The pictures on the right of my screen, with our smallest doing some bouldering and kind of getting ready for her bigger adventures. She's had an absolutely brilliant expression on this day. which was if you ain't fooling, you ain't learning. And she just came out with that completely by herself. But I think that's brilliant and really goes to the heart of this kind of growth mindset concept that you've got to fail at stuff to get really good and look at any talented person or leaders of industry, look across the sewing community at people that are absolutely amazing at their craft. And behind that, when you scratch the surface, you'll see an absolute catalogue of failure, much more failure than success, because that's how you learn and push forward. That's about it. I will put some links in the chat, but that's just something to have a little think about. Thank you very much.
Um, Thanks, Chris. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Chris before he dashes off? He's got another meeting to go to. So you've got about 5 minutes to ask him any questions you might have about anything. You can just put your hand up, or yeah, Joe, courage isn't doing something without fear, it's having fear and doing it anyway. One of my favorite quotes is something along the lines of courage doesn't always roar, sometimes it's the quiet voice telling you to get up and keep going. It's much more eloquent than that. But it's a very nice quote that I sort of have come back to at times. Everyone's saying thank you, Christo. Any questions for Christopher about any of it? He's linked to TED Talk. That's the Carol Dweck TED Talk. I can what I'll also do is email these things out when I send everyone the recording, so that these links are included with the graphics. I can stick them all in an email so that you don't have to be on Facebook and you can get them in an email too. Joni says she will have to stop thinking she's too old for some things. Yes, Joni, you will. I think, age is Jen, what was your saying? Morally, data has no morals. Can you write it again? Oh my God, morally neutral. There we go. I knew it was morally something. My brain. It'll get in there eventually. Age is just a number, just like your waist size. It's just a number, and um one of the things that we all come to realize is that no matter what their age is that we have, internally there's we're all living simultaneously ages internally. Sometimes I'm 9, sometimes I'm 15, sometimes I'm 25, sometimes and it's whoever's. There was an amazing interview I heard with Bruce Springsteen once, and he was talking about how essentially all of the different versions of you are in a car, and sometimes individual versions are at the wheel, and sometimes you have to reflect on who is at the wheel in order to be able to work out what's causing the challenge or the limitation or the block or the excitement or whatever else. And actually, I say to my kids, I know you think I'm ancient and I know it all and I'm really grown up, but like in my head I'm still about 23 most of the time. There are bits of me that definitely recognize I feel a lot more mature, and I'm able to deal with a lot more stuff now than I was at 23 when I was a bit of a mess. And some are playing with the radio. They totally are. Absolutely. Some are playing with the radio. Some are like chucking bits of screwed up paper at each other. Um, and sometimes I wonder actually if our future selves are also in that car, if there's sort of an element of embodying who we will be as well as who we were and who we are. And I think everything is a bit fluid. And I think there's no such thing as too old. I think there just isn't. There just isn't. So Joni, definitely. Um, okay. Anybody got any other questions or anything for Christopher before he dashes off? It sounds like you've all got loads out of it, so I hope that it's been useful. For some of you, this will be a model that you use and you know about in your day-to-day work. Jen, you've commented on that. But for others, just recognizing that there is a difference in these two states, that you have a choice, and you can choose how you respond to particular challenges. simply by reframing the power of yet and that I am learning and these statements that take us from I can't to I will be able to. The growth mindset is about being in a state of motion and moving forwards, and a fixed mindset is a lot more about things just being as they are. And if you recognize that there are those two states, and you recognize that in your sewing you want to achieve, we've been talking about goals and moving towards audacious goals, then the growth mindset is a really vital and important thing. um okay, I'm going to sign off. That's our coffee breakdown for today. I will be back at 8 o'clock for Ask Me Anything, which is literally ask me anything. I'll tackle whatever comes my way. It's just to give you a sense of what these sessions are like in the club actually, and how useful it can be to just have a tutor on tap. So if you've got any burning sewing questions right now, you need any tips or advice, or you want to ask me about, I don't know, wedding dresses or anything, how to hem silk organza, then I can help you. I'll try and help you. And if I can't help you in the moment, I will find the answer and I'll get you the answer, which is my general approach to things. So I will see you at 8 o'clock tonight for that. But in the meantime, have a good day. I'll upload the recording and I will send out a little aid memoir of all these links and graphics that Chris has put together. All right. Have a lovely day, everybody. Take care. Bye. Bye, bye, bye.